session. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, and greetings from Luxembourg. My name is Nancy Squicciarini, and I am a facilitator for ECIS, which I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of such an innovative organization. We have Sarah with us, who is head of professional learning. Thank you, Sarah. And we also have Joe, who's supporting us as well. So thank you for being here. We wanted to start off with, what is some advice that you received from a leader that you felt it was the most practical, that it actually made an impact? So if you want, there is a link in the chat. If you want, add your thoughts. And believe it or not, I've already put this link on LinkedIn. And let's see what are some of the thoughts we've already received about practical leadership advice. So let's see what we have so far. Wow, we got a great turnout. I love when you go put things on LinkedIn, or you just get a great response of different perspectives. Focus on building your team and spending time. Do not take criticism personally. Oh, that resonates with me. Elevate those around you. It's not about you. And here's another one. Build time. Take time to build connections. Already, we're getting the wisdom of our international community. So keep on adding your thoughts, please, of what advice, and I'm just going to share these out as well after this session, and really advice that is practical. I love this one. Leadership is not about the title. It's really about how you influence others and positively influence others. So thank you for being here. Let's begin. So thrilled that you could join us. This is on behalf of the Women in Education, and I believe also, besides having Proserpina here today, I believe we have Pauline here. Pauline, give a shout out as a member of a team. Where are you, Pauline? I know I saw her come in.
I'm here. I'm waving. Hi, good morning.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
Of course.
And just so you know, I do have an event. We have events coming up, and Pauline is facilitating one of them that has been hugely popular so far, of transitioning from middle leadership to senior leadership. So we try to create events, and also Pauline, like this event, we try to do it in multiple time zones so we meet the needs of our international school community. So thank you, Pauline. We have a special slide for you later on as well. How we like to think of virtual facilitation is that we're building community. We already have 20 people in this room. If you see somebody out there, just say hi. Also, if you're in a breakout session and you see someone or hear something from someone and you're saying, you know what, I love what I just heard from Sarah, I'm going to connect with her and share her email address. So that's the heart. The head is just some of the wisdom we're going to get not only from our guests, but also from each other. That's the head, and the hands are that takeaway. After you leave this session, what can you do? What will you do? What do you believe this impact of this hour you've made? And we're really privileged that you're here to be with us. When we think about connections, as I mentioned, use the chat. If you're on social media, we have a hashtag. And for the large session, we're on mute, but please unmute when you want to share. And we do go into breakout rooms. Remember the idea of equal voice. Just because someone isn't speaking, it doesn't mean they're not thinking. And at times we just need to ensure that we really pull them into the conversation. So now, I feel like if I had a drum roll, I would be able to have this drum roll to these two incredible leaders that I not only know personally, so I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to talk about in the professional context. First, with Katrina, I've been to her school twice. She is a leader who models what she believes in terms of innovation, in terms of connection, and overall, just the interaction. When I first arrived on the campus, the first thing I noticed was this director is meeting every student in front of her building, and then the interaction with her team. And then me being new, I was so welcomed by, you can feel a school, and the leader sets the tone. So Katrina, thank you for being here. Can you give us just a few words about yourself?
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for that beautiful introduction. Hi, Pauline, and hi, everybody else who has joined us this morning or evening or whatever it is where you are. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all of us coming together and sharing our experience and sharing advice and connecting. So I'm Katrina Moran, and I'm the head of school at Saigon South International School. And prior to this, I was at Taipei American School for 17 years, and previously I was in Japan. And I've been in education for 4 decades. So I had to pause there because it always stuns me when I say it. And I've had really wonderful opportunities. I've learned a lot, and I'm very happy to share and to learn from Proserpina and from all of the group here tonight.
Thank you so much. And now, Proserpina, where do I begin? I met her 2 years ago at a conference. She was part of a women ed this conversation, and suddenly we just connected. I didn't realize like she was a rock star in international education. All of a sudden, I'm like, wow, I met this lady and she's so nice. And like, I talked to her, we were laughing at a table forever. And then I like Googled her, you know, you Google somebody, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Like she, besides the organization where she's a founder and owner, she works for the IB, but most importantly, she is the most endearing and kind woman who we were very fortunate for her to join our special interest group. So Proserpina, tell us a little something about yourself before we start in with our conversation.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Thank you, Nancy and ECIS, Katrina and Pauline. I'm excited. I come from a background of educators and diplomats and vowed I'd never be an educator. Hello, look at me now. So obviously this has done something to me, because each time I've tried to run away, I come right back. So in the past 25 years, I've worked in international schools as well as international organizations like the IB and UWC. And being a part of this group reminds me of why we do what we do. You forget sometimes because life happens, but it's such an honor to be here. And it's always so humbling that people sign up to listen to what I have to say. I don't necessarily believe I'm wise, but I do have a story to share. And each time I share my story, I hope that someone will take something away that will help them see their life differently and want to do something more exciting and enhance what they already have. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you both. It's such a thrill. So let's talk about how we're going to organize the next hour. We're going to be looking at 3 areas. And we're looking at conflict management, we're looking at professional advancement, and then also school culture. Now, we're going to do 2 of those topics, and then we're going to have a breakout room for a good 10 minutes. We want to ensure that you get to connect and meet. And your prompts are quite easy for that breakout session. You're going to pick 1A. What did you agree with from what you heard? What would you argue with? What do you aspire to? Or what assumptions do you think were made? So keep those A's in mind, because when you have the breakout session, that would be how you're engaging, besides introducing yourself with your name and your role and where you currently. So I think we're going to get started. And we decided, the 3 of us, we were going to begin with school culture. And here's a quote to start off with, the idea that culture, whoops, I went too far on that one. James has to cut that out. Culture does not make people, people make culture. So I'm going to stop share right now and let the conversation begin. And right now, my first question, I'm going to start with Katrina, is really, now everyone, we have questions. So if I'm looking down, now you know why. And I need to put my glasses on because it's like font 8 and I need at least font 18. Like that's what happens when we're getting older. So we're going to start off with, ready, start with Katrina. What advice would you give to a younger self about fostering a positive and inclusive school culture? And I'll start with you, Katrina, please.
All right. Well, I want to start with a story from this morning. So this morning we had a parent coffee with our new parents for second semester. And the parents were introducing themselves and they were saying why they chose our school and what their experience was. And this parent said, I'm really happy my child is at the school because I love the vibe. And I say, what exactly do you mean by the vibe? She said, well, the admissions process was it was very welcoming. I come in to the front of the school in the mornings with my child. There's a principal there, the head of school there greeting me, and the security is smiling at me. I meet the teachers are organized, they're communicating really well with me, and the facility is open and welcoming. And I said, oh yes, you're talking about school culture and all the different aspects of a culture. And, Bowman and Deal describe it with 4 frames. So they talk about the structure and the human resources, and they talk about the politics, and they talk about the symbols. And it's all of that that makes a culture. So what I'd like to say to my younger self is that I am responsible for developing a positive culture at my school, and I can. So whether I am the team leader in grade 1, or I'm the associate principal or the principal or the head of school, I get to impact that culture. And I get to impact it with every interaction, with every conversation, with my responses to people, with how I deal with conflict, with how I go about my normal day every day. And I really can have an impact on that. And so one of the things that we do, I see some of my team here, thank you for joining, and we work hard on our culture. And we really work on making sure that, so we've built up a very positive culture, and then every person we hire to bring into our school, we're trying to ensure that person understands our culture and that they are a good fit for that. And we often use the work of Pat Lencioni. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's called the ideal team player. He talks about, life being a team sport. And we look for people to join us who are hungry, humble, and smart. And the hungry is, they're eager to get the work done. They're high achieving. They're about getting the work done. And they're humble. They're confident, but they're not ego driven, and they don't take all the credit from themselves, and they're smart. They have good EQ, and that all of that together then really helps to build and continue that culture we're trying to build at SSIS. So
you mentioned such a beautiful point that comes up frequently when I work with middle leaders, is that they say, oh, I can't do this because, let's say, my director or my principal doesn't allow it. And you brought up such a good point to a younger self. You do make a difference within the culture you work with. You can make that impact with those that you collaborate with. You don't have to wait for the leadership team. That you can do and make that difference with the interaction you have with those that are around you. So thank you. That's a beautiful reminder. Anybody who's a middle leader out there, that was some great advice. So thank you. Now, Proserpina, your idea of creating an environment, a school culture that is not only positive, but inclusive.
Thank you, Nancy. In my 4 decades, like Katrina, in international education, I think the first thing I've learned is you come from a culture to enter into a culture. And sometimes we forget that. What Katrina says is so true, is that you can influence in a positive way. And no matter where you are in schools, I've worked in schools where I've been a minority. I've worked in organization all my life. I've always been the minority. And I could have put who I am, Proserpina, in a box and ignored me and my values and my belief systems and just gone and immersed myself in other cultures. So in our international schools, you have to arrive and know who you are and be comfortable with who you are, and all that goodness that just oozes out of you. You need to make sure that you're sharing that with the culture that you've embraced. But another area which I think we struggle with sometimes is we lose ourselves and we forget who we are, or we don't reflect about where we want to be. So I think as you enter a new school culture, you bring who you are there. And Katrina said something about sometimes it fits and sometimes it doesn't. It's great to hear a school leader saying they're taking the time to look at recruiting people that will fit into the culture. At times, we're recruiting people to teach students, but we're not thinking about who the person is and how they're going to add value and help us in what we're aspiring to do. And cultures like curriculum, many a time I've been in school leadership, and some teachers and some people don't understand that curriculum is the whole. It's everything. Everyone is learning all the time. And school culture is that as well. Every time you walk in, you model who you are as a school. And I love that in Katrina's school, everyone is part of that positive, welcoming culture, because people come in from outside and they see it. So advice to my younger self is come as the whole of Proserpina, share what is positive, but be open-minded to learn and fit in as well, and make sure that the values and beliefs align with who you are, because you are going to lose yourself, and then you won't be a great teacher and you won't be a great person. And sometimes, and I know Pauline's had many discussions about this also, sometimes you're surviving in a job and you're not striving in a job because you're lost, because this culture might be a culture of bullying. You know, we know that there's schools where this becomes a norm and people just fit in. No, you need to get out of that. You need to be in a culture that aligns with who you are and ensures that you're developing as a person, but also you're influencing and impacting in a positive way. So the inclusion piece for me, I did get lost as a young educator, as a young middle manager, as a young school leader in, what do I hold back and what do I push? And I'm blessed that I do live in my principles of Ubuntu. So I just have to be present and be human and be a good person. And when you do that, it permeates to all other parts of the school. But the important thing is you're modeling. If you model that goodness, people will follow you, even if others want to resist. They struggle because, you know what, it works. That's all we want as humans. We want to be good and we want to receive goodness.
I love that. And also, both of you just brought up, I think, such an important point, is to ensure that when I was 25, I don't know if I would have, that was years ago, I don't know if I would have the courage to all of a sudden acknowledge that maybe this wasn't a good fit for me, that I would be like, I have to stay because this is what I need to do. Katrina, in your experience at your school, do you ever have to coach some individuals saying, do a reflection process and having them look at themselves and seeing if it is the right fit and helping them with that journey?
We have had to do that over time. But before I tell you about that, can I just tell you, Proserpina,
Please.
Ubuntu is the theme for the elementary school this year.
Oh,
me.
How
What
exciting.
an incredible coincidence. I know it's amazing. But just going back to, you see, cultures evolve, and sometimes people don't evolve with the culture. And so, you know, curriculum, you mentioned curriculum, the larger curriculum or the smaller version of curriculum, it can change, expectations can change, practices can change. You know, you bring in positive education or whatever it might be, and not everybody's on board. And it's like the Rogers diffusions of innovation. Some people are quicker to adapt to that cultural change than others. And sometimes you have to say to people, you know, is this work? Are you happy with this? Are you going to get on board? We are very happy to bring people along. We have coaches. We have, we get teachers engaged in cognitive coaching and adaptive schools and all kinds of practices on individual coaches. But sometimes the people have to acknowledge to themselves, you know what? I'm really not on board with where the school is going, and I'd rather not be part of the culture. And then we can help them find the culture that suits them, because they're all great people and they can be more successful in another environment.
That's, you know, both of you brought up an important point, which we talked about school culture, but what advice would you give your younger self to integrate into the local and international culture? That's a different, because many times you have some people saying, oh, I lived in Paris for 25 years, and I'm just going to be extreme, and maybe I've never spoken French, or I've never been out to. Should there be an integration? My first question. And what do you suggest to get integrated and to know the culture that you're living in outside? So I guess I'll start with Proserpina, then I'll go to Katrina, please.
I actually, thank you, Nancy. I worked in a school in South Africa for many years, and there was that divide, which wasn't very positive. I'm going to call it that. And many a time it wasn't necessarily intentional, but it was there. So what I did was to make sure, which is, we look back now, it's like, really? But anyway, we introduced International Week. And this was not just International Day, it was International Week, and made sure, and I led it, I spearheaded this, to integrate curriculum into learning about others, to integrate oh, it was poetry, it was just politics, it was everything. But our whole community walked away from there having learned so much about who we were. But as part of that week also, we had small 15-minute classes of the local languages, and we actually had our local staff lead those language sessions, lead those small cultural sessions, so that the community understood where we were and almost realized that people weren't invisible. And again, I've been in schools where our support staff does this amazing work, but we say thank you, we're polite, but we don't know who the person is. And I was lucky, my father was a diplomat, so he always pushed the importance of the person you meet at the gate, the one that feeds you, the one that helps you. Always greet and acknowledge and ask about their family. And I'm sure school leaders will have seen talking to someone and saying, how is your son? Did he finish school? Just that small nugget goes a long way into acknowledging. So integrating the local culture for me is important in acknowledging others in whatever environment you're in. We're all equal, we're all human, and it's both ways. And when we cruise through schools and just see these bodies moving and not stopping to get to know the person, I think can be challenging. But my lesson in that for younger self would have been do it more. Do it more and do it with more people. We are busy people, but I know that it does make a difference to those we work with. Yeah.
You know, it's funny because I moved from being assistant principal to ops, and the new staff had no idea who I was because they never took that opportunity to come to where I was in operations. I was just this, and you brought up such an important point that as someone, a younger self, I would make more intentionality. Katrina, your thought on that in terms of getting, and you're living in Vietnam, really, you have that subculture within your school, but what about integrating, and what advice would you give?
Well, there's two things. The first is we do educate all new teachers on cultural adjustment and what they can expect. And so whether you're coming from a school within the city or you're coming from another school overseas or changing grade, there's an adjustment. So we go through, the Gullahorn and Gullahorn research and all of that indicates, and we do that with our psychologist, we have our counselor there. So we are mindful that people will go through an adjustment, likely at some point in time. So that's the first thing. And then, so our elementary principal is on here. She meets with her new teachers every month. So they're talking about the professional aspect and the personal aspect. So it is keeping in touch with our new people, having them buddied up with already established people and really keeping an eye on them. So that's really critical. We work on very much integrating our non-Vietnamese staff and our Vietnamese staff. And we look at an overall sense of belonging. It's our work is on belonging, everybody belonging in this community. And so when we have our winter holiday party, our Christmas party, it's faculty and staff. We have gatherings, faculty and staff. So there's a recognition that everybody has a critical role to play in the school and we can't function well without each other. So it's more integrated in that way. The challenge can be language. And one of the things we found was that our overseas staff were not pronouncing our Vietnamese staff names correctly. So we introduced into the signature for email, we had them record everybody who wanted to record their name so we could actually call them by their name. So really specific practices like that foster that sense of belonging for everybody in the school.
Oh, beautiful. And actually knowing that we have these different personalities within our school, it actually leads us to the next area we were going to discuss, which is the idea of dealing with conflict management. As a younger person, I know I've reacted in some ways. When I reflect back 25, 30 years later, I don't know, or I know I would not have done it that way. So I'm going to start with the first question, which is looking at, and basically this, what strategies would you recommend for your younger self to use at resolving conflict among staff or students? And I'll start with Katrina again, and then Proserpina. What strategies, what do you think that you wish you knew when you were 20 25, when dealing with an issue, or as a leader, a younger leader at 33, that you said, oh, now at this age, I don't think I should have done it that way? What strategies would you suggest? Everyone's
Well-
smiling, by the way, on this question, by the way. We have a lot of smiles right now. People are like, suddenly they're like, oh, let's hear about what she's going to say right now.
Well, Proserpina and I can say in 4 decades, we've encountered conflict. It is impossible to avoid it. And I remember how I used to feel, and I can see myself, I remember walking up the stairs, I had to confront a teacher. And I remember thinking, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't have to do this. I can turn back now. But it was that sense of do not tolerate this inappropriate behavior. So keep going and do it. And so that was very hard because I was an elementary teacher. I didn't expect to be confronting conflict, except maybe dealing with classroom behavior. So what I learned over time was that, number one, you really have to do your homework. And what I mean by that is something happens, you have an instant, it's a trigger, you're upset, you realize it's not right, but wait a minute, pause, pull back and do your research, make sure you have all the facts, the information, seek to understand. So that's the first thing. The second thing then is prepare for that interaction. I don't want to call it a confrontation because I want to think about it as an interaction because it's two people having a dialogue. And so then I would say rehearse that conversation. Say, this is what I'm going to say, this is how I'm going to start it, this is how I'm going to progress. And then I would say prepare your body. And what I mean by that is, as I'm walking up those stairs to that confrontation, I'm breathing deeply. And I'm realizing I'm not going to go in with an angry face. I'm going to go in with a, bland face because I don't want to exacerbate the situation and because I want to set the tone. And this is the thing as a leader, no matter what situation you're facing, you are in control. And so often the person you have to confront, if they're angry already, then they're not the one in control. You need to be in control. And I've dealt with parents in that situation. Many different scenarios. And I just say, I will stay calm. I will be in control. And then what I do then is I try to let them speak first. I set the tone. I say, tell me what's on your mind, because they have to, if they have an issue and they're emotional, they need to get it out. They're not going to hear anything I have said until they have had a chance to get it out. So I sit back and I listen, and then I stay very calm and very clear. And I usually have determined what I want as an outcome. And I expect to get that outcome. So I usually think about what do I want as an outcome from this meeting, and how do I want them to feel when they leave the meeting? And I go through very systematically. So unemotionally, systematically, compassionately, and most of the time it works. Sometimes you have to end the meeting. So let's read this issue.
I love it. Sometimes I love, okay, everybody, there's 3 P's I took away from that. Pause, pull back, prepare. And you mentioned something really important, Katrina, is that you went to their room. Love that. I don't know if you realize you said that, but rather than saying, come to my office, you went to their room. So I love that. And 3 P's, everybody, what are they? Pause, pull back, prepare. Thank you. Proserpina, your thought on conflict management strategies that you wish you used when you were younger?
To stop and breathe. What we learn over the years. But you know what? Conflict happens, full stop. It happens. And that's just a reality. But as I look back in being a young teacher and where I am now, we all have our little baggage that we carry around. So one of the most powerful tools for me as a school leader and a leader in work environment is acknowledging that there's something happening. And what I found, and I don't know if you've seen this, Katrina, is there's usually something else that's happening in that person's life. And so you just happen to be a trigger for whatever reason you are. So it's a bit cliche, I know, but you almost become a parent in dealing with things. It's like, okay, and our roles change. And I found that when I dig deep, we find out what the issue is. But unfortunately, we can't always prepare, right? Because sometimes things just blow up in your face. But the stop and breathe piece has been a powerful tool for me. And then looking at the person, no matter how loud, aggressive, and it can be a colleague, it can be parents, it could be a student as well, is know that there's something deeper than this situation, which is allowing them to freak out and be unhappy and be challenging, etc. And in wanting to find that resolution, you're going to have a conversation wherever it might be. There will be a conversation, and true, sometimes you're having to stop that conversation because it's getting aggressive and uncomfortable, and you pause and you schedule it for another time. So in what kind of conflict takes place in a school environment, I would say many types of conflict. Cultures are different also, in that there are cultures that will be quite comfortable with conflict, and there are others which aren't, and it's a struggle. So trying to manage that and understand, we were talking about a school culture, but the local culture is important, and then the individual culture of all our peers in the school environment and with the parents as well. So trying to, if it is a scheduled piece, trying to do your background into how this culture might deal with conflict does help, because then you're doing the right things. And, you know, sometimes I was in the Middle East, and how we sat when there were men and women in the room, all these pieces, you know, this can help with whatever conflict you're about to deal with when you're dealing with your colleagues or the parents that are coming in. Even with students, keeping a door open is a safe place at times, you know, closing it, whatever, you know, there's so many different dynamics that come about in how you actually management. So yeah, my lessons as a younger person would have been stop and breathe, think, and know that there is goodness. We forget that we all have some goodness, but there is goodness. And how might you influence a positive conversation and moving forward where there's that feel good factor, even if there isn't a resolution? But because sometimes we know people need to just come and cry or just come and scream, and after that it's all gone and they feel better. So being that facilitator, multitasking, it's scary, but this is what comes with leadership as well. Being that facilitator for the space and then the calm, I think, is very important.
There's my takeaway from something that I don't think I would have done if I was young. I don't think I was brave enough to stop a conversation when somebody was being abrasive to me. And that's something I do now, which I wish I knew when I was younger. And also, it reminds me of the feedback that was given on the Padlet, that the conflict is not personal. And that you mentioned that, Proserpina, we have to almost peel the onion. What are the layers underneath it? Okay, everybody, we've been together for about a half an hour now, and we've talked about conflict and the idea of school culture. So now it's your opportunity to get together. So think about what you would like to share. What did you agree with from what you heard? What would you argue? What do you aspire to? And what assumptions you think were made? So we're going to go in for a good 10 minutes, and you have 4 in a group, 3 in a group to have a really good conversation. We'll be moving around. We might be joining you to say hello as well. Joe, I'm not going to go into a room, so I'm just going to say not now. And everybody, I think all the rooms, Joe, fix room 1, please. That has 2 people. Because there's one room of 4 that you can, that's great. Thank you. So we just need everybody, enjoy this conversation for a protocol, and be sure to introduce yourselves as well. And I hope you enjoyed this type of collaboration. All right, rooms are going to be opening now.
My face back, okay.
You know what? When you have about a minute. Hello. How are your conversations?
Oh gosh, it was so good. And we thought that we were being called back to the group, or I did.
Joe,
Sorry.
Joe, you can stop the recording now. This is not everyone back yet. Welcome back, everybody. Can you please in the chat put 3 words that describe how your conversation was? Just the impact, how did you feel after that conversation? Don't press return yet. We're going to do a chat cascade. So please type in 3 words, 3 adjectives, adverbs, anything you want. Type it in the chat. And then on the count of 3, and give me a thumbs up when you have typed those words, but don't press return yet. And when you've done it, thumbs up, and that tells me you're ready. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Will. Wonderful. Thank you, Margarita. Thank you. Okay, I see. Thank you, Karen. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, press return. Wonderful. Let's see some of the inspiring, honest, reflective, insight, welcoming, patient, preparing people. Love this. This is what it's about, getting us together. So we're now back to our last 15 minutes where we're focusing on professional advancement. Looking at your career, if you're 25 and 30, what did you wish you knew? And this is where we have 2 incredible people to share. So let me first start with Proserpina. Here is my question. Need the glasses again, ladies. Ready? Thinking about school advancement, what would be the key skills or qualifications you would advise your younger self to focus on for success within international school leadership? That's a biggie. And everyone's smiling and nodding right now.
Cultural competence. This is what our international education is all about. Wherever you go, you need to know who you are, but you need to understand others as well. So I think that's the most, for me, that's one of the most important things. But I keep coming back to that self and your purpose, because Pauline will know, as I'm sure most of us know here, as you live life, you get to do a whole lot of interesting and exciting things. And you know what? It changes sometimes. Who would have thought I'd be sitting here? My 25-year-old would have been like, yeah, right, pull another one. I was a French teacher. I loved my babies. I loved to plan all these amazing lessons and take my kids on trips and then go home and hang out with my friends. I never thought, actually, I resisted school leadership because I kept seeing people change. People who left the classroom became leaders. They didn't have leadership skills, so they were lousy leaders. And I thought, I don't want to be one of those people that forgets what it's like to be in the classroom. So think about your purpose and the why. And I'm the first one who promotes teacher leaders. So it's not every educator who is going to be a school leader. So how do we then nurture our teacher leaders to carry on working with students in the classroom, but positively influence their colleagues and the whole idea of learning and teaching in the classroom? It becomes sad when in schools we're taking teachers out because we're promoting them, because we're paying others more, even if they're not amazing. So I think that's important. You can have qualifications. I have 3 degrees. I haven't used all my degrees. So those are great experiences, but not always necessarily practical. But if you understand who you are and what you aspire, where you aspire to do, but what's important is open yourself up for other things. Pauline's great as one of my coaches, because whenever we talk, she hits me with these questions. I'm like, woo, I didn't see that one coming. But, you know, get yourself that mentor that will help guide you, where you can share. You can just ramble on and on and on, and then they'll just throw one little question and you're like, okay. And working in the IB, we visit schools, we talk to different schools all over the world. And when I'm in schools and I introduce myself to the students, I always say I'm Proserpina and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I think when we live and believe that, then we're good. But then you need that person who will help guide you and help you enhance and work on those skills that will help you for your next job. And you know what? Even your present job as you are now.
that. Thank you for that. And I have to give a shout because you mentioned the idea of cultural competence, recognizing our biases and recognizing that at a young age. Actually, Yasmin is here. And Yasmin, do a big wave. Hello, hello. She's actually going to be doing a session for women in education about unconscious bias. It's coming up in April, and she's doing 2 sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon towards middle leaders. But really, Yasmin, just say hello, unmute, and say hello, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm really looking forward to the sessions, Nancy. You have no idea how excited I am. And I was actually quite surprised because I'm like, you know what? If I was looking at my younger self, if I was looking at myself at 20, like maybe 15 years ago, I'd be like, what in the world? You're excited? I'd be just so nervous. But I'm actually really looking forward to the 2 sessions. So yeah.
Thank you so much. It's not until April, but she's already on our website. So thank you for sharing this. Katrina, your thoughts, what would be and Pauline, be ready. I'm going to ask you as well, because this is your area. So don't think you're off the hook, Pauline. What would be areas, and I think the question was referring to the skills or to be considering if you're looking at leadership, what would you advise, Katrina? Are you muted? I don't know if it's me.
I am muted.
There you go.
Well, I think you really have to know your values and what is important to you. So when we were talking in our breakout group about you thrive when your school environment, your organization matches your values, because we're in values-driven work. And it's really critical to know that, and to know when it is time to leave that culture because it no longer is in line with your values. So that's what I would say. Now, there are some very practical advice I would give to aspiring leaders. And, you know, at our school, we really are providing opportunities for people to grow within our school. We have 9 people moving internally this year. And we have 59% of our faculty and staff are involved in middle-level leadership positions, because we want to give them that experience. And so they all learn various skills, and training like Nancy's training and others' training really help them develop skills. But in terms of yourselves and practical advice, I would say one of the things that we all have to do if we are aspiring leaders is to be comfortable speaking publicly. And we have to practice that, and we really have to learn to do that. We need to learn how to interview effectively. And I often offer a workshop. It's the interview lab. I offer it to teachers who are leaving, going on to new positions. But this is skill. We can learn all these skills. And the other skill that I think we as women must learn, and that is to negotiate. We need to learn how to engage in effective negotiations, and that's a skill that we can learn. And I often pause people when they're talking about positions and say, all right, I'm going to give you some words and I want you to cite them back to me, because we're going to negotiate your package, your position, whatever it might be. But I think those are very practical skills. And the others I would say is education. I have found as a woman in Asia, when I received my doctorate, all of a sudden, I was no longer Mrs. Moran. I was Dr. Moran, and it made a difference. And, you know, sad to say, but it did make a difference. But I know if I were back again and I knew I was going to be ahead of school, I would have continued on, and I would have done an MBA so that I had that finance degree as well, because I love finance. I enjoy finance. But again, women are not always perceived as embracing that financial aspect of leading a school. All of these things can help. They're not totally necessary, but they do add that little extra tool in your toolbox.
Oh, thank you for that. And I am putting Pauline on the spot. This is her area of expertise. Sorry, Pauline, I am going to have you add what would be your advice for someone looking at what area they should develop in order to look at international school leadership? And what would be your advice, Pauline?
The advice given so far is, you know, spot on. It's really good. And what I would add is, you know, we talk about all sorts of things like cultural competence and beliefs and so on, but you really have to know yourself and what is your special sauce? What are you really good at? Are you aspiring to be a leader so that you go up the ranks, that you have more seniority, or do you really enjoy working with people? Leading is a people's business. You have to be able to interact. You have to know that no day is going to be the same, and everyone's going to come, you can be faced with anything on a given day, and you have to want and enjoy being able to guide not only, when things are going really well, but also when they're not, and do you really have those skills? And if you don't know, that's when you have to start as a, middle leader before you go into those senior leadership positions. Test it out by getting involved in different activities in schools.
Good, yes.
Become part of committees. If you, let's say, want to be the head of school, go to your head of school and say, hey, how did you get there? Can you give me some pointers, please, of how did you get there? And can you help me by setting up a pathway for me to be part of the finance committee that then reports into the board? Or could I get involved in an accreditation committee? Or all those things that will have you leading a project so that you can start to see, how are people interacting with me? Actually, they all thought I did a great job chairing that committee. So, that gives me confidence. And so I'm going to keep building on those skills, but really not just going from one day to the next, like I want to be a leader, you really have to think about that, the why. And then, do you have the capacity, and can you build on that as you move forward?
This is just a little snapshot of what Pauline's going to be talking about for a full hour in 2 different time zones about these skills needed to go from middle leadership to senior leaders. So Pauline, thank you for that. I know I just put you on the spot, but one thing that resonated me with what you were saying is also the idea of having someone to speak to. I think even Proserpina mentioned mentorship. And who can you go to just, I don't know, where there's no judgment. Just so you know, before we bring it to a close and thank our guests, is that one thing that we support quite heavily with the Women in Education is mentorship. And there's 2 avenues that you can go. Is number one, if you go to the ECIS website, there is a mentorship platform where you can register if you are a member school, where it almost works like an algorithm that you put in an application and then you get sorted, not like Harry Potter's sorting hat, but almost, with someone who meets your profile. We've had a lot of success. Actually, the person that I've been working with for a couple of years, Michael, really, that has created such a strong friendship for me. It was a mentorship. Now we're just dear friends. So that's one avenue. Another is I want to share with you that coming up is a series, and we're now in our 3rd part, that is mentorship and how do we develop it within our schools, that we are hosting in about 2 weeks' time. And this is open for everyone. And before we say things, I just want to let you know, having Proserpina and Katrina here today has been a privilege and an honor for me. When I asked them both, they jumped at it. And I just feel like, how lucky are we to have people to share? And the second is all of you taking the time to be here for this hour. I mean, this to me is really virtual. Woo-hoo. Let's continue getting together. So we do have the January event. The mentorship platform is another avenue for you to connect. The next is, as I mentioned, Pauline is doing this event twice to really support leaders, middle leaders, and some actually adding on to what she said today. And then we also, because this is 10 o'clock Europe time, and then we knew it was evening more in Vietnam, we're going to do it again for the evening for Europe. And we have Kathleen and Tanya who will be guests, and same format. But we wanted to ensure that we really make an inclusive environment when we look at women in education at ECIS. The last is the idea of, we're coming to a close, and remember we talked about the heart, the hand, and the heads. Now we're talking about the hands. What are you going to do after this? And that's a feeling. What are you feeling right now? I am feeling inspired. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I believe. Or what will you do after the session? You might say, you know what? I've been so inspired by Proserpina, by Katrina, that I am going to contact them. I'm going to say, listen, I've heard what you said, and I really would like to just hear more about what you've done. Or you might say, you know what? I met Nicola. I think she's lovely. I met Amy in a breakout room. I want to connect with Amy. What will you do? Think about that right now. We're just going to, you don't have to write anywhere. I just want you to make that, almost that agreement with yourself of what you're going to do. We don't always need to write it and share it. This is something personal. holding it to your heart. I always believe in the heart. And the last thing is saying thank you for attending. And could everyone please unmute? And we need to give a big round of applause to Katrina and Proserpina for being here. Did everyone unmute? Everyone unmute? All right, everyone go wild.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And I'm
you.
also going to do an extra clap
Thank
for
you.
Pauline, who I kind of threw in there, and she is just so beautiful that she just responds. Thank you, both our guests. You are beautiful people inside and out. I can't tell you what this conversation, just for me personally and for everyone here, it's been inspirational. And this is what we hope that we continue with. And I just want to give a quick story before you go. Last time we did a Women Ed event, I yelled out and I said, I didn't yell, well, maybe I did. I said, listen, I don't have a lot of experience with working with or unpacking unconscious bias. If anybody does contact me, this is how Yasmin is doing her 2 sessions. She literally just said, Nancy, I would love to do it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. So if you have a passion, if you're saying, I would love to share this, and we have a platform, contact me. That is how, am I right, Yasmin? Isn't that how we got to know each other? She literally just wrote to me and she's like, Nancy, can I do this? And I'm like, yes, I'm sharing that with you. This is a platform for all of us to elevate and to lift. So let's use it. So
Nancy,
Proserpina,
thank you and Joe. Can I just say thank you and Joe for organizing this and facilitating it. We appreciate it. It makes our life that much easier.
Thank you. I love the connection. So everyone, it is now 2 minutes after. I want to respect your time. Have a lovely, lovely evening, and sending you hugs from Luxembourg. So bye, everybody. Thank you so much. And Proserpina and Katrina, thank you so much.